Hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight to our annual meeting for Community Living 2024. Just a little bit of housekeeping for you. The bathrooms are actually in that back corner and you can see the signage for that. The food and drink, we somehow got double food and drink, food at least. And so lots of fruit and veggies. So help yourself. Which is also nice and cool day. And the donuts are actually a miniature of the donuts that Impressions Bakery created for us for Community Living Month. They are delicious. So eat one and take one home. And then don't forget to fill out a ballot for the door prize. We'll be doing the draw for the door prize at the end. So we're going to start with our annual meeting, which will be short and sweet before we get to the really fun stuff. So I'm actually going to ask our board to come up to the front, and I'll give them some quick introduction. Sorry, Bethany. I told you to eat the donut and then. So I'll get our board to come up. I'll give you some introductions for them. Just to let you know that we are still looking for some board members for the fall. So if you are interested in joining our board, just take a seat here. If you're, except Ben, please stand. If you're interested in joining our board, you can speak to any one of the board members or to myself, and we're happy to give you a bit more information about that. So as we're taking a seat, I will introduce you to Ben Underwood, who is the chair of our board. I'm just going to get you guys to wait. So Karen Huber is our first vice chair. Virginia Dunbar is our second vice chair. Bethany Dinsmore is our secretary. Michelle Whitney and Lisa Schaefer are our directors. And we also have Ashley Fox, who was not able to make it tonight. So I am going to hand it over to you.
Cool that you invited Matthew Ray, dairy farming background from outside of Mitchell, if I recall. And we've been really impressed with how on top of the housing file he is, so keep working on him as a really good ally in what you're trying to accomplish here. I think the first thing I want to say is we're going to cover lots of ground tonight in terms of housing, because housing has become a big topic which covers so many different dimensions. Hopefully that means everyone will kind of leave tonight having kind of had something you hadn't thought about before or seen something you weren't aware of. But I think more than anything, what I hope everyone leaves with tonight is what you just heard from Jennifer. That I hope more than anything people are walking away thinking, what can I do to help this? To help the Bring It Home campaign. This is really, really impressive and really exciting. I've just gotten to know about it through these last couple of weeks getting ready for this. But I really hope you walk away saying, what can I do to help? Who do I know who can help bring them home? So the ground that I'm going to cover in the remarks before we get into the panel is kind of painting the big picture of housing and kind of why are we where we are? Where are we with Housing Canada? Why are we here? And what are some of those levers about what we can do about it? But then I'm really looking forward to the panel with my colleagues on the panel, where we'll talk in more practical terms about what does it mean here, what will the challenges be for Bring Them Home, and again, how can you help them? But I think, when any of us think of that word home, I think I'm sure the place we start and should start is, what does it mean to us? And so I'm gonna just start here. When I think of home, yes, I have a home in the city. I've lived my entire adult life in the city, and yet the word home also for me is about a 20-minute drive away from here. Susan, you've probably never seen that picture before of your husband on the right-hand side with little Ian in the middle and my brother Nelson beside him. So, my early roots were on what was actually a fairly small farm and very much a struggling farm. The picture on the right-hand side was when I was in high school, and through kind of hard work, resilience of my parents, Susan, her husband, my brother, now the nephews and the next generation, this thing called Underwood Grain in a larger farm has grown. And as Jennifer said, I am so very proud to be kind of connected to that at least through birth. But for me, home you know, has so much, for me, there's so much attached to these pictures. Just as there is when all of you think of both home today and home where you grew up. And, you know, if we were, and I'll be challenging the panel to think a bit about what are the words that come to mind when we say home, and I challenge you to think of that too. So for me, when I think of those pictures, both where I grew up, where I am now, you know, home is about stability. It is about kind of having the confidence of going to sleep at night and knowing I can sleep through the entire night without disruption, with a place that's safe, it's warm, which is adequate. Home for me means community, it means stability, it means so many different things. And I think Jennifer did a great job at really challenging us to also think about, there's so many things that each of us would think about, people without developmental disabilities that relate to home, that are probably exactly the same word, Danny, as we're going to hear from you, of things that matter for home with you. And as Jennifer said, we also need to think about some of the other challenges, things that are different and requirements that are really important for people living with disabilities and or developmental disabilities and or dual diagnoses. But let's go back to the big picture now, and this is where I'll start bombarding you with some facts and charts, etc. But just talking about Canada's housing problem. The first thing is, sadly, this is something that we're number one on, and not in a good way. So what you're looking at on the right-hand side is, if you read the media in any country now in the world, developed and developing world, you will read about a housing crisis. Canada is leading the pack at the magnitude of housing crisis, in the sense of what you're seeing on the right is just how fast our housing prices increased since 2000. It wasn't always that way, by the way. We were tracking more with other countries, but since 2000, in the first 2 decades of this century, our home prices in Canada increased at 3 times the rate of the US and 2 times the rate of Europe. And the US says they have a housing crisis, and they do. We have a really serious housing crisis in Canada. And one of the dimensions of that housing crisis is driven a bit by housing used to just be about home. And over the last 2 decades in particular, it's also become a really significant investment. It's not a bad thing that housing's an investment, but it's ended up favoring those who invest versus newcomers or young people that are looking to buy their first home. And just what you're looking at in this chart is just saying, starting in 2015, it's indexed the percent of homes that are being bought by second-time home buyers, repeat home buyers, that can take the equity they have now and buy a bigger home. And that's the blue line. And the red line is the investors. The green line is the people who are trying to get in, the people who are trying to kind of move out of mom and dad's home and become a first-time home buyer. And that group has significantly declined in their access to being able to buy homes. You know this, and Jennifer referred to it. This isn't just a big city thing anymore, and in part the big city problem has found its way to you, and COVID made it worse. As everyone said, oh, wouldn't it be great if I work remotely from Listowel? And that has shown up in your average home prices, which you're seeing on the left-hand side of this chart. Jennifer gave you some quotes and how they've gone up. You've all felt them. But also on the rental side. And that rental side, as Jennifer said, like, how in the world do you even aspire to renting a modest 1-bedroom apartment on $1,300 a month of total income when ODSP is your main source of income? So this is a huge, huge challenge for any young person or any modest income person, and obviously even bigger for the folks who North Huron Community Living is supporting. Okay, why do we have this problem? So the first part, ironically, in Canada, we have arguably all of this space. We are rich in natural resources, but we are 7th among the G7 countries in the number of homes per capita. So we haven't built enough homes to match our population. And that's why you hear these numbers about how many more homes do we need, and we need to be doubling the rate of building homes to actually have the number of homes that would even match up with the average of other G7 countries. So part of our problem is a supply problem. We don't have enough of any homes. We definitely don't have enough affordable housing units. So social housing units that are below market affordable housing. What you're looking at on this, and this was done by Scotiabank early last year, and what they're showing here is the percent of all of the housing in the market that is what you call social housing or affordable housing. So way over the tall bar, which we all wish we were, is New Zealand. Denmark is next, but the red bar is Canada. And so the point that they made in their report is Canada would need to double the amount of affordable housing that we have just to match up with our peers in the rest of the OECD countries. So we don't have enough of affordable housing, and again, that's part of where Bring Them Home comes in. Let's get that number up. Jennifer talked a lot about this, so I won't spend too much time here, but just the housing need is particularly acute, and there are particular dimensions of it for people with disabilities. Jennifer mentioned, that adults living with intellectual disabilities are over twice as likely to still be living at home with one or more parents. And as a parent, I know this routine. We get older. And so while it's possible to financially support our children and physically support our children at some points in time, that doesn't last forever. And so that creates the dynamic that Jennifer talked about, is what happens when mom and dad aren't there or can't support you. And part of the answer is what you see in the bullet. Jennifer referred to this. Adults with developmental disabilities are disproportionately represented in long-term care. And so 3.5% of the long-term care population are adults under the age of 65 with disabilities, compared to 0.2% of the general population under 65. And so this isn't the ideal solution of what Bring Them Home should mean. Importantly, while this is a human and a personal problem for the people that don't have the home they need, it affects all of us in so many ways. And these are just some of the headlines. I'm going to just hone in on the healthcare side of this. There's been now increasing research done about what happens when people don't have the home they need. And the quote on the left-hand side is from a study earlier this year, just one example. Housing unaffordability, the social cost of that now in this nation is 1.75 times greater than cancer. It's on par with heart and stroke. It has a ripple effect, and you also know it means it's hard to retain the people we need in our communities. They can't afford to live here, or they're driving 2 miles away and they're not as productive. It's more than housing. It is about having communities that work for everybody. Okay, well, why is it so complicated? Why do we have such a significant problem with housing? And to start that conversation, I want to go back to history. In the same way that I did when I think of home, I think about my roots. Well, similar to when we think of housing, times have changed. The picture on the left-hand side, I think I did find in the Perth archives. But when we think of it, the lands on which we are gathered, are the traditional territories of many First Nations, but more recently, they became home to settlers. And then there was ample land and ample resources to build housing, and there probably wasn't a building inspector, and there probably wasn't the need to go through a long approval process. And it was easier and more straightforward to build homes in that day. Picture on the right-hand side is kind of what became quite familiar in Toronto and in the post-war period, of when it's like, let's build lots of homes for returning veterans from the war. We've all heard that story, some of us witnessed it. And if you think of then, number one, we had more land. We also had a psyche that we see the downsides from an agricultural perspective. We had the psyche of just keep building homes, more land, keep spreading out, keep spreading out, keep spreading out. There are consequences to that, but we could build homes faster. Don't get me wrong, that's not an infomercial for, let's just keep spreading out on land, but it's just, it used to be much more straightforward building homes. In addition, this is now, for us at Habitat for Humanity and for you here developing the Bring It Home project, the landscape of how you get from the concept to a key in someone's hands just has so many more dimensions to it. There's zoning, having it be zoned that it is available for residential. There's financing. There is dealing with all these considerations around heritage, around impacts on the environment, impacts on neighbors, shadowing, etc. And you see the big word in there, NIMBYs, which I'll come back to a number of times. The deck has been stacked in favor of us, and I'm one of them. I already own a home. The deck is stacked in favor of those of us who own a home and are established in our neighborhoods, in terms of how inadvertently we in this country kind of developed our process of how we approve things. And so lots and lots of complexity around how you build. And so that translates into a number of things. Actually, I'm going to come back to that one in a second. I'm going to jump to here. Because it's become so much more complex to build, and there's so many more things that we take into consideration, and we, Canada, with best of good intentions, are trying to involve everyone and consider everything, whereas we were first on how fast the prices go up, we're pretty much last on getting anything approved. So among OECD countries, we're actually 23rd out of 24, so I'm not sure what we did there, but we are second last among OECD countries. It takes 3 times, those same numbers about how fast we grew, same numbers apply to how fast it approves things. It takes 3 times longer to approve, to get a building permit to build a home here than in the United States. And I can assure you, homes in the United States are not poorer quality than they are in Canada. The picture on the right, again, I was involved with this housing task force. There's some policy documents that outline kind of how you can build and all these different rules. 2 key ones are a provincial policy statement and the Planning Act. And you can see the Planning Act in 1970, when I was 7, was 5th the number of words of what it is today. All of those words add up to more things, more process, more approval, more bureaucracy, more things that have to get dealt with and addressed. Going to come back here now. So all this bureaucracy, we know who creates that. That would be our governments, again, with best of good intentions on our behalf. One of the things that for me was new when I came into the housing sector 11 years ago was figuring out who does what on the government side. And in fact, with housing, every level of government is involved in some way. Sometimes interrelate, and sometimes they overlap, but just quick kind of tour de force of who does what. The federal government, the main levers that they have in housing are taxes, monetary policy, meaning interest rates, immigration, and then the National Housing Strategy, which they came out with in 2017, and this government's continuing to update. But their main levers are financial. And we also hear lots of announcements about funding, right? That how their new funding coming out, and now they're trying to change the funding into, we'll give you this funding to a municipality if you do this in terms of housing things, which to be honest, for the most part, I think is smart. But the federal government is predominantly money. That's what they have to work with. Money and taxes, what they tax, what they don't tax. The provincial government sets really the policy framework. So all those frameworks around how you can use land, frameworks around building code, frameworks around property taxes and what municipalities can charge, that municipalities then translate. Frameworks like Landlord and Tenants Act, consumer protections, etc. But the rubber hits the road at the municipal level, and I think you are a 2-tier municipality here, am I right? So in your case, and we have this a lot in the GTA as well, a lower tier and an upper tier. So you'll have 2 different municipal levels that ultimately are involved in the zoning, in the site plan, and anything that's more than 10 homes needs to go through a whole site plan approval process, and then in the building permit. They are also where all these fees and charges translate from the policy the province sets into how much we at Habitat or you as a community living North Perth would pay in fees and charges or beg to be exempted from. Property taxes happen at the municipal level within the provincial framework. And the municipalities are the ones that are more than anything on the hook for delivering affordable housing and community housing delivery. And again, our municipal folks may beg to differ, or you may have nuances on that as well, but more than anything, you bear the burden of working with nonprofits and other players around having that affordable housing on the ground. And then across all those groups of government, they all have the opportunity of surplus government land and how that gets used or doesn't get used in terms of addressing some of our housing programs. And they all have some degree of housing program funding. But one of the challenges again here is municipalities have most of the burden of delivering housing. They actually have the least policy flexibility and the least money flexibility. So this is, again, one of the challenges of getting, how do we get all these governments working together in a way that gets us what we need and does it faster. Before I leave governments, a big problem with governments that I didn't understand 11 years ago, and I think most people don't fully appreciate, is housing has become a major revenue source for our governments. So as much as governments say, and they mean it when they say they're trying to fix housing, they have a problem because they have become so dependent on housing for revenues. At the federal and provincial level, HST is a big revenue source. And so because we've had that big run-up of housing prices, that has been manna from heaven for the federal and provincial governments. Because every new home that's built, there is HST based on the full market value of the home. We at Habitat pay $70,000 of HST on every affordable home that we build. So we say that to our governments, we pay you back more money than we get from you to help build the housing we do. So HST at the federal and provincial level, at the local level, development charges, again, I'm not sure how it works here, big deal where I'm from. And what you're seeing with the chart on the left-hand side is the combination of all these different government fees and charges has taken us from where it was about 25% of the cost of a new home in 2011 to now it's 31% of the cost of a new home, and I think this is the Canadian averages. 31% of the cost of a new home is money we are giving to the governments. Now, why did the government do that to us? This country needs and benefits from newcomers. The challenge is when immigration policy doesn't match up with housing policy. And that is what has happened in this country. Thankfully, the federal government is now kind of recognizing it, the public recognizes it, but that's been part of what has taken us to where we are. There's another chart I realized I didn't put here about education, and just the government also said, okay, we want to spend less money on our post-secondary education, so let's let our colleges and universities grow their foreign students program. Great thing to do, brought in lots of revenue. Those of us that pay taxes didn't notice, felt good, drove housing prices up. Because now in communities that have a college or a university, there's been this massive demand for housing that wasn't there before. When these things are disconnected, we get results that none of us wanted. Skilled trades. I think everyone has seen this. Please tell your children if they're not going to go into agriculture, skilled trades. Skilled trades is such a great career, and we don't have enough people coming into it. 60%, up to 60% of the skilled trades workforce is going to retire in the next 10 years in this country. Big deal. Causes prices to go up on how much we have to pay for skilled trades and makes it slower to build things. And then coming back to kind of what I've been signaling in the conversation is, who does this affect the most? It doesn't affect people like me, who were lucky in terms of the year I was born and when I was able to buy a home and when I was able to get a pretty cheap post-secondary education. It doesn't affect me. At least it doesn't affect me in buying a home. It affects the quality of living in my community, but being able to buy or rent the home you need, it's most affecting our next generation, our younger generation, and our vulnerable populations, including those that bring us here tonight, the clients of community living. Okay, what can we do about it? This is where I'm going to kind of move towards wrapping up, because then I want to switch to the panel so we can talk about, seriously, what can we do about this? But I have 3 slides here. This one's got a lot of words on, and I've touched on some of this as I've gone through it. we need more housing density. So the picture earlier of let's just keep kind of building in more land, of course that's not the right option. We at Habitat GTA are push hard on housing density. And when I was on the Affordable Housing Task Force, remember the discussion where we were pushing for, you're reading about the paper, the whole, let's have four plexes be possible anywhere. I have no idea how that's playing out here in North Perth. But I remember us talking about it in the task force, and because I'm from small town Ontario, I said, well, are we just going to say that's for communities that are like 100,000 and more to push for four plexes anywhere? And one of our task force members, who has roots in Listowel, commented that no, this should actually be true in any community. Like we should be able to build a fourplex anywhere in Ontario on any residential lot. And I'm glad that individual took that stand, and slowly but surely, that is one small thing that is starting to be embraced. But beyond fourplexes, where I come in the bigger city, like we need much more density. Anytime we build a new transit hub, anytime we're along a major kind of corridor, that's where we need greater density. So the whole thing about density, that connects to the next one, which says end exclusionary zoning. Exclusionary zoning is both around what you can build and what you can protest. So this language of as of right is about what you can build without having to kind of consult with neighbors and get kind of permission through a process. So we need to be much more permissive about what we can build. That shortens approval timelines and gets us more of what we need in 2024 and 2034. It's not going to be the same as what it was in 2004 and 1984. We need to think of our communities, even Listowel, Mitchell, etc., is looking different than they did, in my origin days. Reduce red tape, you probably figured that out, and I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir on reducing red tape and anything. You got the sense of government fees. So the notion of really rethinking government fees and taxes. The challenge here again is it is easy to react and say, oh yeah, I didn't like seeing that picture that says 31% of government or of houses are coming from government fees. The flip side is we need to be more open-minded when our governments are putting something forward that says we're going to do something to change taxes. And these are difficult conversations, but we have to be open to saying, okay, how might we rebalance things so that in the next 10 years we can get back to a housing landscape that is actually making a bit more sense. We've got to invest in infrastructure and community amenities. It's not just about housing. We need roads, we need water, we need to be able to flush toilets, we need schools. So it's having that wholesome picture. And then, of course, I picked up on the immigration coordination. Just two more slides. So I want to come back now into affordable housing and just a couple comments here. What you're seeing here is kind of that continuum of housing, starting at how do we support people who don't have a home at all, who are unhoused, all the way through people that are looking to get into their first rental housing, social housing, which is what we're talking about tonight, or transitional and supportive housing is there. The piece I live in is that kind of shown as a bit of a step up as you move towards the right, which is how do we increase the supply of we call it affordable ownership or just equity building housing, where you are getting both a home and an ability to build equity. And that's a piece we have to look at. How do we do more of that? How do we change some of the government incentives, taxes, etc. to do that? Just to the left of it is how do we create incentives, funding, enablers for more purpose-built rental and affordable rental.
So thank you so much, Ian, and I am going to ask our panel members to come up right now, and I will do an introduction. So I'd first like to introduce you to Danny Steves. Danny's positive attitude and determination have led him to many opportunities to make a difference in the lives of others. Danny has been privileged to share his experiences in many public speaking opportunities across Ontario. In the past, Danny has enjoyed working within his community to make it more accessible for everyone, including building portable ramps and distributing to local businesses in partnership with the municipality of North Perth, stopgap.ca, and local businesses. Danny is an active member of the CPNet Advisory Committee out of Hamilton, Ontario, where he does different studies about how people with cerebral palsy live their daily lives. Danny is also partnered with Eric Gall and Empowering Ability. Danny runs the social portal of the Empowering Ability Club. Approximately 3 years ago, he started hosting a talk show on YouTube, which is currently called Possibilities. As host of Possibilities, Danny gives his guests and viewers a space to share and learn about how everyone has abilities to offer to the world, no matter the circumstances. Danny also works as a Twitter specialist for Leslie Motors, located in Wingham, Walkerton, and Harriston. So thank you, Danny, for joining us. Right beside Danny is Megan Graham. So thank you for joining us as well, Megan. Megan has been a realtor for 15 years and is proud to work locally with Kempston & Worth Realty Limited as a sales representative. Megan enjoys forming relationships with her clients, assisting them in making a potentially stressful situation easy to navigate. And I can attest to that because Megan did help us with the purchase of our most recent home that we bought. Megan is passionate about housing in our community, evolving to meet the needs of a changing and growing community. Megan has a background in business administration, marketing, and client relations. In addition to real estate, she's also the coordinator of the North Perth Community of Character, an active member of the Connect Club, and sits on various boards. Making our community a better place for all who call it home is important to Megan, so thank you, Megan. Beside Megan, we have Jessica McLean. Jessica is the Manager of Strategic Initiatives for the Municipality of North Perth. Jessica was born and raised in North Perth and has been employed with the municipality for over 8 years in various roles. The Strategic Initiative team includes the functions of economic development, communications, special initiatives, and strategic planning and policy issues, such as affordable and attainable housing development. Thanks for joining us, Jessica. And at the far end of the table is Kelly Stone. Kelly is a lifelong resident of the municipality of North Perth, where she currently resides with her family. Kelly has worked for the City of Stratford Social Services Department for 11 years. As the provincially designated Consolidated Municipal Service Manager, the City of Stratford is responsible for delivering social services in Stratford, the town of St. Mary's, and Perth County. Within the Social Services Department, Kelly has held positions ranging from providing frontline casework to roles supervising Ontario Works, homelessness, and housing. Currently, Kelly works as the Supervisor of Social Services for the Housing Division, where she's able to pursue her passion of promoting homelessness prevention, housing stability, and working collaboratively with the municipality of North Perth, service providers, and emergency services to support vulnerable community members. She's thankful that she has the opportunity to complete her work in her home community. So thank you for joining us, Kelly.
An experiment here. I'm realizing it's hard to have a panel when you're all having to crane your neck and look back at me. So just bear with me. I'm going to break safety rules a bit here and see how much cord we have. Not as much. Just bear with me for a second. I promise not to unplug the light totally. Oh yeah, we're just going to keep grabbing some cord here. Perfect. Okay, so I signaled this earlier that when we talk about home, we should always talk about home and what it means to us. So I think I gave each of you a quota of 3 words. And Danny, I think I warned you. I'm going to come to you first. 3 words. Safe haven, relationships. I missed the first one. Choice. Okay, everyone got choice, safe haven, relationships. And my guess is like just choice on so many things. Choice about about your day and how you're managing your day. Thank you. Kelly.
Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay, so when home to me is somewhere that is safe, it is stable, and it is affordable.
Can everyone hear me?
Great.
Good, we're gonna ditch all of these.
Home for me is a foundation for opportunity in all areas of life.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? It's
Good work,
someplace, I think it
Audience
goes well with,
participation, enthusiasm, everyone's leading the way.
you need that foundation, that safety net in order to meet the other needs of your life, other opportunities, whether it be employment, education.
I'm trying to put you on the spot. Just clarification.
No, that's fair.
Megan, you live in the world of selling homes and making that possible for folks.
And I think for me, home is a place that you feel safe and secure and supported.
And I am gonna try the audience participation, because I talked about like what words come to mind. What else on people's mind? What does home mean?
Family.
Family. Family and how you spend time with family.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yellow brick house.
A yellow brick house and sorry,
A new house,
A new house.
yeah.
a new house.
Yeah.
And the excitement of the
Yeah.
new house, right?
Whole lot, more people too, yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, okay? Audience is doing this side, a little bit quiet. Come on in this part. What does home mean? One of you can do it.
Well, I would just say a big investment. You know,
Yeah.
it's an investment that I'd say your whole life is on.
Yeah.
And some of us can achieve it, some of us can't.
And maybe, and so I actually just am gonna check in, like, let's just get a sense of what is home right now for people here. So I made a lot of reference to home ownership. I made a lot of reference to my age. How many people here own your own home? Okay, keep your hand up. How many people here bought your home before 2010? So most of us did. And how many people that have your hand up wish you were buying your first home now? Okay, which leads to the next group. So we had anyone, and sorry, your name, I'm gonna put you totally in the spot.
My name is Alicia.
Alicia, so Alicia, you wanna buy a home.
I would love to, but at this rate, the only chance I'm getting a house is when unfortunately somebody passes away.
Right. Yeah.
And even then, I don't know.
And so where's home for, if you don't mind putting it, where's home for you now? Is it with mom and dad or?
No, so I grew up in Portage, but I'm currently renting an apartment in a fourplex in Lincoln.
Other renters? Who else in the room is a renter?
Me.
Renter, great. Renters? Perfect, okay. So we have a bit of a sense of who's here and who's in the room. And so now let's move to the challenge. So the next question we're gonna talk about, and Jennifer's talked about it, I talked a bit, but let's kind of now think in terms of North Perth for everyone. For our panel, and I start meeting with you, what worries you the most about, or what's worrying you about housing in general, here in North Perth?
In general, affordability, I will say this, our municipality is very open to density and increasing the density of housing. So we are very lucky to live in a municipality that is progressive and that does work with builders and developers to build more doors. Because at the end of the day, it's not single family homes that are going to solve the problem of housing affordability and having places to live. It's more density to help solve that problem. And our municipality is a really good partner in recognizing that. So I think, if we can continue to build outwards and up and, different styles of homes, then our municipality will be further ahead than other municipalities that are similar size to us.
Jessica, I'm gonna have you go next, but Danny, I'm saving you for last. So everybody warming up on this. Jessica, what's in your mind? What's worrying you?
So there are a couple things that worry me related to housing in North Perth. I think one of the biggest things is what our current and future needs are and compare that to the residential land that is available to meet those needs. So kind of align with what Megan is saying, the importance of having higher densities and doing gentle intensification and not just building out. Another worry I would say is when we do get these new units built, how do we ensure that they are affordable or attainable
would say same, lack of availability and affordability. I think also the lack of the appropriate type of housing to meet the needs of a number of individuals in our community. From a social housing perspective, what worries me is a significant increase in wait lists for rental income housing, which is the program that I supervise.
Kelly, just a second, everybody doing okay in hearing Kelly?
I'll talk louder.
Prefer that she talks louder?
I'll talk louder. Yes, so nobody's ever told me so. Yes, but definitely a challenge and a concern for us is wait lists. The number of individuals who are waiting to get into our housing right now, because it is oftentimes the only thing that people can afford when they are living on social assistance, whether that's Ontario Works or the complexities that come with some of the individuals who are in our communities. With that, a lot of private market landlords are not necessarily willing to rent to folks. So that also compounds the amount of people who are waiting for rent-to-income or social housing.
And I'm gonna keep pushing you a bit, for both you and Jessica. What are some of the things that you're seeing that you sense the general public doesn't fully appreciate?
So, from my perspective, I would say one thing that we're met with frequently is just a lack of understanding as a whole around housing and homelessness and what comes with that, and a lot of stigma, a lot of stereotypes. I think that when folks are faced with that type of mentality, it can be really hard to shift that narrative in the community. You know, a friend talks to a friend, talks to a family member, and a specific type of narrative is created that doesn't necessarily match what reality is. People who are struggling, people who have complex barriers, whether it is mental health, developmental disabilities, or dual diagnosis, acquired brain injury, whatever the case may be, it's never as simple as we just need somewhere for someone to go, and it's never just the affordability. There's a lot of layers that are associated with that.
Yeah, just to add on to what Kelly said, which was so true, I think it's the magnitude of the problem, and it's not just the low income families or individuals that are having issues, but there's many families, people that are working full time that are just, they could be teetering on the edge of losing their home, losing their rental, and it's affecting your neighbors too. Yeah.
That's very well. Yeah. Danny, patiently waiting. What worries you?
I am good, if I may, I am gonna speak to the disability, spectrum for that here, because it kind of worries me that, as you know, we close institutions, and I think the last one closed in 2009, I believe, and in my opinion, and I apologize if some of my answers on that one, some of the comments will some of the things, but in my opinion, we can't go back to, we can't repeat history. We have to move forward when it comes to housing for people with disabilities. And I think that goes back to my word of choice, because it really scares because if you put people with disabilities, in group housing, you're not really giving them a choice of who they want to live with and what they want to do with their time. So I think that is the most worrisome point for me, and I'll see what my fellow landlords have to.
I can interject, I think density is the scary word.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think, so, and you and I have had this meeting conversation, so I know that your parents understand you better than I do, right? But here's what I think that I heard you say. So when I was, Danny, when I was your age, a lot of the talk then was about deinstitutionalization, right? And this idea of, okay, let's not have people living in these big group homes. Let's give people the opportunity to live in a community.
Yeah.
I think part of what you're saying to us is a very real fear for you and other people with disabilities is people without disabilities are gonna say, oh wait, here's a fix to the problem, and go backwards. Yeah.
Because, for lack of a better word, they just think, oh, let's just put them in, group living
Yes.
or an institution, and I hate to use that word, but
Yeah.
in some cases, I believe that's what group living is an institution, and I believe, as I said before, we can't go back, we have to move forward.
And I really appreciate, Danny's word of choice, right? So when those of us in the room without disabilities, and today the majority of us in this room do not have at least an identifiable disability, think of the number of choices we're able to make every day. Go ahead, Susan.
I was just gonna say, and I think that's really important about the Bring Us Home
Yes.
project, is that those units are individual, so everybody gets their own home.
Yeah.
With the support as well.
Yeah.
Can I jump in there?
I was gonna give you a rest and come back to you, but if you wanna go ahead, because I'll tell you where I was gonna go, and if you wanna, that's fine. Where I was gonna go was actually now talking about, and I was gonna start with Megan to give you a rest, and by the way, then I was gonna hit up Ben or someone on the board on this question.
Yeah.
We heard Jennifer give us all kind of a general overview of Bring Us Home, and just what excites, what's exciting about that, what feels right for choice about that. Do you want a break, and do you want to speak last? Jane, or do you want to
Go ahead, Megan.
Okay, so we're gonna let Megan go first, and then Ben, I'm putting you on notice, or other members of the board, just to comment on it. Jennifer, you're welcome too, and then Danny, I'm coming back to you.
Yeah.
And think, oh wait, here's a fit, be in a big hurry and come up with the wrong solution. A solution that made sense to us and is worse, for you and others. Megan.
I actually sit on the fundraising committee for the Please Bring Us Home project because it is something that I feel really passionate about, and it's something that I feel like can help unite our community and make us a more diverse and inclusive community. I think it's really important for people to understand that the people that community living supports don't always fit in a traditional housing model. They don't always fit in, some of those housing situations that Kelly and her team at the county and at, the city of Stratford are able to provide. This is going to provide a safe space for those people, a place for those people to build some of their independence, to feel like they are more of a member of our community, that they have a home that they chose to be in and that they want to be in, and that is, a place that's going to give them some dignity. They're going to feel proud about it. And I think as a community, it shows to
from a funding and staffing standpoint, but not so big that it feels like they've lost choice. So one of the choices around that 8 to 10 units was around being able to do something in a hub model approach that allows us to leverage our staffing and our funding without getting too big. And I think that's always on our mind, is not going so big that it feels like you're segregating, so.
Danny, any other board members want to comment? Danny, I'm back to you.
What the question?
So the question is, so the Bring Us Home,
Yeah,
the Bring Us Home project and the vision
Yeah.
of what's being planned there.
yeah.
What excites you about that? And what would that mean to people you're advocating for?
Well, it's kind of a hard question for me to answer because I know I myself bring it, in all honesty, the Bring It Home program is not what I'm personally looking for. However, I think my friends on the community living with people at community living will support that. It is going to be really exciting for them because as my friend Carrie says, home is a yellow brick home with a fence, and I think the Bring It Home from whether or not that would give Carrie his yellow brick home, it would certainly give him more choice in the matter of than what he's in now, perhaps. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Bring It Home can offer. Yeah.
Anyone else want to comment? And I know that we may have parents in the room that, and all of us who are parents, what we want most for our children as they become adults is for them to be able to be fully themselves and fully thrive. I can say as a parent, I know what it's like to have a son who cannot, an adult son who can't thrive in the same way that is easy and available to everyone else. And yet we all want our children to be able to thrive, have choices, be fully themselves. I'm just wondering, are there any parents or anyone else in the room that wants to talk about what excites you about what you're hearing about the idea of the Bring It Home project? It's fine, if no one wants to jump in, but just thought I would check. Yep, go ahead. I know you're Danny's mom and dad. I forget your name, but you're just Danny's mom and dad.
Just to clarify the name, just something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has his idea of like.
Yeah, and I think, I'm assuming part of what you're saying is, so you have cerebral palsy, if I'm understanding correctly. You're friends with developmental disabilities, but you don't have developmental disability. And it's,
In a way, I do, but you can't really see it.
and unseen, yeah. And
and so I think you said what may make sense for you may not be the same, it's not going to be the same for everyone. Yeah. So, bring us home, the next question that I wanted to put to the panel, and I'll probably put it back to my friends in the audience, is, so, okay, what will the challenges be? What will some of the challenges be for the Bring Us Home project? Megan, I'm gonna start with you.
Just keep starting.
You've got this small task of raising $4 million, so that's probably not a challenge, that probably is a challenge.
Absolutely, that is probably the largest challenge will be the fundraising. I think we're all aware that our economy is not, necessarily the greatest, that people don't have that extra money to always go around, that businesses don't have that extra money to give. But we do hope within our municipality that when people are thinking of a place to give, they do think about the Please Bring Us Home project and how important it is to the people that do currently call our municipality home and that would like to maybe come home to our municipality. So I think fundraising and also the acquisition of land. Land is a commodity that is scarce. We're not making more of it. You might look around our community and see that there is lots of land outside of our community, but that's agricultural land, and I think we do need to really protect that from a development standpoint. And so for us to be able to find adequate land within our municipality, ideally and hopefully somewhere in a central location where people are able to walk or bike to even our downtown core, to use our library, which is a fantastic resource in our community, which will also be part of the United Way Hub, so to be able to access some of those services there. It's going to be, those are going to be challenges. They're challenges that as a committee we're excited to face, that we're looking forward to. And in the past, when projects have gone on in North Perth, the community's really gotten behind them, and we hope that this is something that the community does get behind as well.
Jessica?
Similar to Megan, I think the biggest challenge will be securing the land. From the municipal perspective, Community Living has done a delegation to our council, and the council did direct staff to start some discussions with staff, so those are ongoing, and we're excited about that. I think another challenge will be, given our current economic climate, making sure the project remains feasible from a financial standpoint and sustainable. And then, this was brought up a bit earlier, but just being aware that NIMBYism does exist, and coming up with proactive strategies to kind of combat that, making sure that there's not barriers to this project.
And that picks up on the question I'll be asking after this, is just back to that, okay, what can everyone do to help to kind of wrap everyone's hands around this, to be able to support and overcome some of the challenges. Kelly?
Yeah, so I think similar to what both Jessica and Megan have already said, obviously land, finances, location, all of those things. It's tough because, I look at it from an operational perspective, and I think when we look at some of the issues that we run into in some of our multi-residential buildings, we appreciate the need to go up. However, that brings with it its own set of challenges sometimes, right? You look at things like flooding, what happens when your elevator goes down? Those are real things that happen in multi-residential buildings on a frequent basis. So while it sometimes does make sense to go up, it can be a challenge as well. But I recognize that going out isn't always an option when you're limited for land. I think Jennifer had spoken earlier about, there are operational dollars, which is great because sometimes with projects like this, the challenges are that there is capital funding, but there's no operational dollars, or vice versa. So the fact that there's a plan for that already is fantastic.
Danny, what do you see as some of the challenges?
I think, I'm not gonna speak to people with disabilities need a spot that they can, need a spot where it feels like home. And what, I guess what worries me is, if you make it, if you make it too big, it's not gonna feel like a home because, albeit apartment is a home, but you have to, it has to be small enough that, you know everyone in the building. So,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, sorry to interrupt, but my understanding, so I'm looking at Ben, Susan, and Jennifer, you're aiming for 8, having 8 units, so is 8 a good number? So 8 kind of individual, everyone will have their own bedroom, everyone's gonna have their own washroom, right? And a common, everyone has their own kitchen? Or their, okay.
It's basically like a small apartment
Yeah.
for each
And
individual.
for 8, yeah.
And
Okay.
then common area.
Yeah,
as
in that
well.
common area, and 24-hour staffing to be able to support the needs that people have, but the staffing isn't living in
Yeah,
rooms.
that is a great idea. I would say, in my opinion, it would just, be the right number, like, for me, if you are with adopting this model, I would say you can't go higher than 8 or
Right, because then it's gonna feel too big.
because it's gonna feel too big. But yeah, I would think it would just be the right number for this to work. But again, you have to be careful on how it's managed also.
Right, how it's managed, got it. Before we switch to the last question, which is going to be what can people do to help? Susan, you're project lead on this. Anything that hasn't been addressed, and challenges that are on your mind for this project that you want people in the room to be thinking about?
I don't think so as far as challenges. You know, it would be nice to have a prototype that we could see and share and things like that, so people can say, oh, so that's what you're building. But
Yeah.
we're still like getting input tonight. You know, is 8 the right number, is 10 the right number? So we're still working on that aspect.
Yeah.
Because we do want to get it right. You know, there's a lot of things we've thought about too. Is it a place for possible employment? So perhaps depending on the location, we open a little cafe that we can run. And, you know, it's a form of employment and skill building, all those types of things. And they still go home to their own place.
Well, and the thing I would mention, Sue, is that you're not gonna get it right the first time. You're not.
Well,
But the next time, it's gonna be even better.
yeah.
So you gotta build on
The
that.
next $4 million fundraising campaign after the first one. I want to, and sort of conscious of the time, and Jennifer, I want to give you a chance to kind of bring us home and wrap up the evening. But just, so the place I want to end with the panel is, what's your shout out to the audience and the community tonight? What can people do to help bring start with you, and then I'm gonna run down the table in that direction.
Okay, I would just say, please, donate if you can, and donate your, donate, means donate your time, donate your, resources, donate your money if you're so inclined, because as you know, it takes a village, and I don't see this, this project won't go off the ground without you, so please consider that.
Thank you very much. Megan, top that.
Definitely, supporting the project financially, taking the opportunity to learn about the project so that when you do hear about it out in the community, it's something that you can help us spread as well, to be aware of it, to be aware of the goals of the project, to be aware of our fundraising goal. In the future, we start having events, coming out and supporting those events, supporting the fundraisers, and just being a champion of it, being a cheerleader of it.
So obviously donate, not only you financially donate, but donate your voice to spreading the word about this project, to getting the community excited about it, as well as just spreading the word that housing is such an issue right now, and we need to all come together to try and address it. I think that would be my closing comments.
I agree. I think, advocate, and not just, to friends, family, that's all very important too, but understanding that, advocacy to all levels of government, understand that projects like this make a significant difference, understanding that municipalities can't take on these tasks all on their own, that it does need to be a community effort. And I think, just that advocating for that perspective shift, that, continue to have conversations that are surrounded around empathy and understanding and are coming from a place of wanting to learn, because that's how we get more people to show up at events and to come up with different ways for how we can support.
All right, thank you. And just like a reminder, this now I'm going to kind of put my habitat, as I say, we're professional beggars. We're just constantly asking for help in every way possible. And so, there's so many ways people can help that they don't always think of. I assume there is a mailing list or will be one. And if you're not on it, get on it, just to stay aware of it. Some of you might be counselors, or you certainly know counselors, and there's a time of just, and you'll see them in the hockey rink, and you'll see them on the baseball diamond, and you'll see them when they're kids at school. And so just like there's conversations you can have about, I was at this meeting, this is important, what can we do? Fees, there will be municipal fees associated with this. Don't know if currently North Perth and whatever the other Perth waives them all. Those are requests to make. All fees associated with this project should be waived. HST, thankfully, in this whole project won't be subject to, which is fantastic. And then there's eventually there needs to be an HVAC system. Eventually there will be plumbing. There will be electrical. There will be roofing. So there's those ways we can help. And then just like the donuts over there, I think we said the local bakery did the donuts. They donated $1 for each of them. So now there's only $3,900 Anyway, there's like $800 left. You're thinking, Lauren doesn't know that. But things like, something we challenge is like, some of you are probably approaching a 25th wedding anniversary. maybe a bigger anniversary, or, you know, or someone's getting married for the second time, not the first time, and it's like, or you're having a milestone birthday, like, those are opportunities to say, you know what, don't buy me a present, like, do a donation to this in recognition. So there's so many different ways to help such an exciting and significant project. Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you, but thank you all for your kind attention, and a big
I'm going to use the microphone again, don't run away from me. I think that there were some questions that people wanted to ask, and I did want to give a chance for questions, because I know that there was a lot of interest in whether